PlayStation. Sony released the original PlayStation in 1994 in Japan and then worldwide in 1995. It wasn't entering the gaming industry from a position of dominance. It was entering from rejection. The failed partnership with Nintendo over a CD-based add-on could have quietly ended Sony's ambitions before they began. Instead, it created something sharper, more determined. Sony didn't just want to compete. It wanted to redefine how games were made and experienced. The decision to use compact discs instead of cartridges changed the creative ceiling overnight. CDs offered dramatically more storage. That meant developers no longer had to compress music into tiny loops or limit dialogue to text boxes. Full motion video became possible. Voice acting became normal. Soundtracks became cinematic. When players booted up Final Fantasy VII, they weren't just pressing start on a game. They were entering a world that felt layered and emotional. Metal Gear Solid didn't rush you. It made you listen. It made you pay attention to dialogue, atmosphere, pacing. Resident Evil created tension in quiet living rooms where every door opening felt risky. But beyond the technology, something cultural shifted. The PlayStation's design was minimal and modern. It didn't look like a toy. Teenagers who had grown up on 16-bit consoles now had something that felt mature. Advertising leaned into attitude and identity. Gaming started to feel like part of youth culture, not just childhood. By the early 2000s, over 100 million units had been sold. Sony had moved from outsider to industry leader in less than a decade. PlayStation 2. When the PlayStation 2 launched in 2000, it carried enormous expectation. The first console had been a success. The second needed to prove it wasn't luck. And almost immediately, it did. Stores sold out within hours. Lines stretched around buildings. But the real genius of the PS2 wasn't just its hardware. It was timing. DVDs were becoming the new home media format, replacing VHS tapes. Standalone DVD players were expensive. The PS2 included one. Families who might never have considered buying a game console suddenly had a reason. Parents purchased it for movies. Kids used it for games. It quietly became the center of the living room. Technically, the Emotion Engine processor allowed for more detailed physics and larger worlds. Developers began building games that felt expansive and experimental. Grand Theft Auto 3 changed the idea of freedom in games. Suddenly, players weren't confined to linear levels. They could roam an entire city. Metal Gear Solid 2 played with narrative expectations in bold ways. Shadow of the Colossus delivered scale and loneliness rarely seen before. Sports games became smoother and more realistic, fueling late-night competitions between friends. College dorm rooms in the early 2000s often had a PS2 running. It became background noise during study breaks. It was the reason friends gathered. With over 155 million units sold, it remains the best-selling console of all time. Not simply because of specs. Because it fit naturally into everyday life. PlayStation 3. The PlayStation 3 arrived in 2006 with ambition. Its glossy design looked futuristic. Inside was the Cell Broadband Engine processor, developed with IBM and Toshiba. On paper, it was incredibly powerful. In practice, it was complex. Developers initially struggled to fully utilize it. The launch price was high. Competition from Microsoft's Xbox 360 and Nintendo's Wii was strong. Yet the PS3 carried something important: Blu-ray. At a time when high-definition media was still emerging, Sony positioned the console as both a gaming device and a next-generation movie player. It helped Blu-ray win the format war against HD DVD. Over time, price reductions and improved development tools allowed studios to unlock its power. Then the game started landing differently. Uncharted 2 delivered cinematic spectacle with tight storytelling. The Last of Us explored grief, survival, and human connection in a way that left players reflective long after finishing. God of War 3 delivered scale and intensity unmatched at the time. Online gaming expanded significantly during this generation. The PlayStation Network matured, offering multiplayer services, digital downloads, and streaming media. The PS3 story is often described as a slow start followed by a strong recovery. It taught Sony resilience. It proved that even a difficult beginning can evolve into long-term respect. PlayStation Vita. Released in 2011, the Vita was technically ambitious. OLED display, dual analog sticks, front and rear touch controls, motion sensors. It delivered console-like visuals in handheld form. Yet market conditions had shifted. Smartphones were rising rapidly. Casual gaming migrated to mobile devices. High proprietary memory card costs limited adoption. Despite this, the Vita cultivated a loyal community. Indie developers embraced it. Japanese RPGs thrived on it. Though it didn't dominate commercially, it remains respected for its ambition and dedicated fan base. PlayStation 4. By 2013, gaming culture had changed. Social media was dominant. Streaming platforms were rising. Players weren't just consumers anymore. They were creators. The PlayStation 4 recognized this shift clearly. Sony simplified its hardware, moving to an x86 architecture closer to PC design. Developers embraced it quickly because it was easier to work with. The launch price was competitive, messaging was focused. This console was about games, first and foremost. The DualShock 4 introduced the share button. That small addition represented something bigger. Players could instantly capture screenshots or broadcast gameplay. Gaming became performative, social, communal. Bloodborne created communities centered on challenge and discovery. Horizon Zero Dawn introduced a new protagonist and a rich sci-fi world. God of War reinvented its franchise with emotional maturity. Spider-Man allowed players to swing across New York with fluid freedom. Digital downloads became standard. Game updates became expected. The PlayStation 4 Pro introduced enhanced resolution and performance, responding to the growth of 4K televisions. With over 117 million units sold, the PS4 defined its generation not just through power, but through consistency and strong exclusive titles. PlayStation 5. When the PlayStation 5 launched in 2020, it did so during a period when people were spending more time indoors than ever before. Gaming became a primary source of connection. The PS5's most transformative feature wasn't simply graphics. It was speed. Its custom solid-state drive drastically reduced loading times. Developers could design worlds without hiding transitions behind narrow hallways or elevator rides. Games felt fluid. The RDNA 2-based GPU introduced ray tracing for realistic lighting. The DualSense controller changed physical interaction, offering adaptive triggers and nuanced haptic feedback. Two launch versions reflected industry change, one with a disk drive, one fully digital. Backward compatibility ensured continuity. The PS5 feels like refinement, less waiting, more immersion. It represents maturity in hardware design. PlayStation Portable. In 2004, Sony extended its philosophy to handheld gaming with the PSP. It didn't feel like a toy. Its wide screen, sleek design, and multimedia capabilities made it feel premium. Universal Media Discs allowed for both games and movies. Wi-Fi connectivity supported online play. Titles like God of War: Chains of Olympus demonstrated impressive technical achievement for a handheld. It respected players who wanted full experiences while traveling. Over 80 million units sold confirmed Sony's relevance in portable gaming.